And also I want to mention, you're the when we met, you told me that CPS or Child Protective Services are no longer allowed to use THC against parents in New Jersey and in New York. Is that correct?
That's correct. There has to be other allegations of, abuse or signs of abuse. They no longer can just use, a positive THC drug test as deeming you as being, negligent to your child.
Yes.
Which is a huge step in the right direction.
Hi, my name is Jenny Blaze, and I'm addicted to all things digital entrepreneurship, business, cannabis advocacy, wellness, and wealth, while helping you to navigate both the content creation industry and the cannabis industry, both which are rapidly growing and projected to be worth trillions of dollars independently of each other. Having this white space to explore gives us the opportunity to blaze our own trails and be extremely creative with the support of one another. Technology in our society has made it more accessible to have a profession where all you need is a smartphone and some Wi-Fi. And unlike most people's initial thoughts of the cannabis industry, you can create a multi-million-dollar business without even touching the plant. I'm a mom of 4 daughters who has 15 years experience in the corporate world, scaling and running businesses generating over $200 million of annual revenue, who turned into a stay-at-home mom and decided to create a business online as a digital entrepreneur through content creation and cannabis advocacy. In just under 4 months, I created a social media brand and podcast that reached number 8 in the top 100 indie TV reviews charts. And I'm just getting started. Now I'm teaching you the secrets to building your own unique career path. Will it all be sunshine, rainbows, and butterflies? Hell no.
She doesn't even go here.
Monetization, trauma, growth, mindset, and self-improvement are things we will be touching on here. Think of this as a smoke sesh with like-minded, badass cannabis mom bosses mixed with business school. So get your canna goodies, make sure you're all set to sesh, and get ready to be elevated and inspired while you learn. This is the Cannabis Mom Boss podcast. Welcome to the Cannabis Mom Boss podcast. I am your host, Jenny Blaze, and today our special guest is Chirali Patel, founder and CEO of Blaze Responsibly and founder and managing partner of Blaze Law Firm. Welcome, Chirali. How are you?
I'm good, Jenny. Thanks for having me. How are you?
I'm doing great. I think it's been just over a month since we first met at the CWCB Expo, the Cannabis World Congress and Business. Wait, did I say that right? World Congress and Business Exposition down in New York City at the Javits Center. And actually, I ran into Renee Ricciardi, who was like, oh my gosh, I have to introduce you to my lawyer. She's amazing. And she also is Blaze and all this stuff. So then I met you in person at the expo, and instantly I felt like, oh my gosh, we have like similar mindset, similar missions. And I just feel like we have good energy. So
definitely felt that energy.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Can you tell us more about how you got into the cannabis industry, how you started your law firm, and what is it that, you're looking to achieve with your business?
Yeah, so I'll start with how I got into cannabis. Was a consumer before, legalization. In college, was just young, and I was enjoying the wellness benefits of the plant. It was way better than alcohol ever was to me. Mm-hmm. And, that was just like my entry into just really exploring with the plant, not really understanding how valuable and how medicinal this plant can be. Yeah. And until 2018, I lost a friend to an accidental overdose. And I also lost my aunt and 2 uncles to cancer. My aunt at the time and my friend, they both were using cannabis to help. My friend who passed from an overdose, it was the only thing that used to help him stay clean. It helped him with withdrawals when he was trying to get clean. And it was just an unfortunate situation, but I know he's an angel above. And so he's a real big part of why I do what I do, because, he was always my number one fan. He's like, you're going to be part of getting cannabis legal. And this is like when we're 19, 20, you know, he's like, you're going to get this legal and it's going to happen and all this stuff. And then my aunt, she had come from India to America to get treatment because it was standard at what we thought at the time, the type of treatment for cancer. And when she came to America, instantly they put her on opioids. She wasn't taking any opioids while she was in India for treatment. They just gave her steroids to control pain and like regular, like over-the-counter medications. So as soon as she came to America, I asked the oncologist, I was like, can you put her on medical cannabis because she qualifies? Because in New Jersey at that time, cancer, terminally ill, she had a prognosis, she had 12 months at that point. And so, you know, we were like, she qualifies, can you give her medical cannabis? And he like laughed and was like, I've been a doctor for X amount of years and I've never prescribed it. I don't believe in it. And you're free to do whatever you want with it. And so I was like, okay, great. I don't have a medical card at this point because I didn't qualify under the conditions. Yeah. And so I had gone, you know, committing all types of felonies, going to states where I can purchase products for my aunt because she couldn't consume the flower. So it wasn't like I can just buy the patches off the market here or the oils or topicals that she needed. I had to go to other legalized states. So I would come back and like just self-medicate her really. And we saw firsthand, my family saw the benefits of the plant. And so we went from being a drug and like a huge no-no to like, oh, this is medicine. And it worked. And it just drived me even more to learn more about the plant. And so that was like the personal drive. But like, I would say about 2 years prior to that, in 2016, I did start traveling to legalized states, making relationships with people in Colorado, operators and legacy growers, just to keep learning. And so I was doing all the self-education. And so then when it came to, 2018, I at least knew a little bit more, but I realized having gone through that experience, I didn't know enough at all. I barely knew like the surface of this plant, what, and the botany behind it and how it interacts with each person, because it really is so unique and special. It's a personalized experience, right? It's not for everybody. So that really made me realize, like, I have a legal degree. This industry is going to be legalized at some point. I need to get into it. So I just used that year as like the year for me personally to be like, I need to invest in this fully. And so I just kept going. Networking really was the key for me. Met a lot of great women in this space. And then in 2019, worked on a medical application in New Jersey. And that gave me the courage to say, you know what, I can do this, because I was responsible for getting banking in order, getting local support from the mayor, helping out with the negotiations. And so I'm really putting together an entire application to cultivate, manufacture, and dispense medical products. So having gone through that whole thing though, I would realize, I'm like, if this is so difficult for me, that's like somebody who's, who understands regulations and compliance, I can't even imagine how it would be for the lay person. And so that's where Blaze Responsibly came about, actually, because I decided I need to take everything that I'm learning and break it down and share it for free with the community at large. And so when legalization happened, for example, I was putting out content like, where can I blaze responsibly? What are my rights with respect to like the odor of cannabis? What are my rights as a pregnant woman now with respect to cannabis? And so putting out all that content. So Blaze Responsibly was like an idea in my head. And then eventually I just started producing things behind it. And eventually now we're recognized as a community partner for Cookie Social Impact, which is super exciting. So we've done an event last year where we hosted a virtual kind of workshop. We had over 202 participants, and the feedback was just amazing, because people were able to leave that workshop and say, I know now how to get my business certified as a woman-owned business. I know now what to put in my business plan. I know how to talk to investors. And so that's like Blaze Responsibly. It's education, it's empowerment. And then being an attorney, I had worked, in government before. I had worked in class action litigation. So having lost my friend, I joined the plaintiff side of the national opioid litigation. So I had done all of that work, but then cannabis was still like, calling me. And so prior to legalization, I had connected with the ACLU. ACLU was responsible for championing the campaign in New Jersey, which was Vote Yes, to get it on the ballot. So part of that was South Asian liaison, getting the vote out, getting, people educated. And then we got legalization finally. And then I decided to join a firm where I can help build a cannabis practice area. So I joined another law firm, helped develop the practice area. And then things happened, it didn't work out. And I was in a position again where I was like, you know what, I'm tired of being undervalued and overworking. I think I need to build for myself. And I think I can do this. And so I didn't know what I was going to do. It was super scary, but fortunately my husband's he's a business guy. And so he was like, if you really want to do this, you need to make a plan.
Yeah.
And so I took like a month before I decided to leave, and I built my business plan, and like I crunched numbers, and I was like, what do I need to do? And I was really fortunate that all my clients really came with me. And so in February, I launched Blaze Law Firm. And
this February,
actually. So,
oh my gosh, congratulations.
It's recent. But since I've opened up, actually, I had a built-in goal, which was I was going to work with at least 4 social equity clients for the year. So one per quarter was my goal. I'm at 6 right now. So I'm working with 6 social equity applicants for free. Thank you. 5 of them have served time. So for me, it's like, okay, you've been incarcerated. Like, that's my give back. That's what I can do as a professional service provider. And so I have those individuals. And then of the clients who so far that have submitted applications to receive conditional licenses, they've all been receiving them. So I represent about 4.5% of the total licenses issued in New Jersey for adult use.
That is boss status.
Thank you. So firm's going really good, trying to build so that I can hire more people. I want to hire women specifically, people of color, and anybody honestly that deserves a chance. But I want to build it so that I can set a model for the industry to say, if you're doing good work, you can afford to take on pro bono clients. You can afford to do the social equity free work, right? It's not, it shouldn't be like an afterthought, or it shouldn't be just something to get volunteer or pro bono credit for. I really think that that's how we can serve the industry best. And so I feel like that was a long way of saying where I am and how my
that's great. That's what we want to hear. We want to hear the whole story. I love this. There's so many things that you just mentioned that like we could have a whole separate episode about. But one thing that stood out to me, because part of, Cannabis Mom Boss, this podcast, is providing, a community to help empower women to safely and confidently come out of the green closet so that we can help really make a big impact to this cultural shift that we're having with what the perception of a cannabis consumer is. So part of that though, and I call it like the green closet. I didn't make up that term. I read it somewhere. I think someone in Canada made it up. But part of that, I feel like, as not just as parents, but even professionals, prior to being a stay-at-home mom and prior to, shifting my career, I worked for Big 4 consulting firms where, they're very prestigious. They have these huge brands, global brands. I was running a over $200 million practice that was huge in our business. So I didn't feel comfortable coming out of the closet, even though I wasn't doing anything illegal at that time. You mentioned, you're a lawyer. And you mentioned committing felonies. Like, can you tell us more about what that was like for you? I can't imagine that kind of internal struggle. And also I want to mention, you're when we met, you told me that CPS or Child Protective Services are no longer allowed to use THC against parents in New Jersey and in New York. Is that correct?
That's correct. There has to be other allegations of, abuse or signs of abuse. They no longer can just use, a positive THC drug test as deeming you as being, negligent to your child.
Yes.
Which is a huge step in the right direction.
Huge. And I'm in the cannabis industry and I didn't know that until randomly, talking to you. So these are the types of things that I want to help share so that people, like us who are professionals, who are parents, we feel more comfortable coming out of the green closet, because it shouldn't be held against us in, other areas in our lives when it's part of, to me, it's an extension of my wellness, makes me a better person, not just a better person for myself, but a better mother, a better corporate citizen, a citizen of the world, So, I mean, going back to, what you mentioned though, what was it like for you, navigating, trying to work as a lawyer, work with the law, knowing that we're going through this period of time of prohibition and people are breaking the law, but eventually they won't be. How do you navigate that? Like, that must be very internally, like some kind of struggle, I'm assuming.
It was difficult in the beginning because, it wasn't well received. It was, a lot of times when I would say like, yeah, like, I consume cannabis, they were just like, you do? Like, you don't look like you do. And it's like, there's a way to look that you do, it was like, it was laughed upon a lot more, definitely before legalization, like in 2018.
Were you so open like that? Where you just were like, you didn't care and you're just like, yeah, I smoke weed.
I was like, you know what, this is something that, this is medicine. I believe in it. And it wasn't like I was like I wasn't on LinkedIn yet saying it, publicly, but I was in my professional circles. Like I was, my employers, like they were aware. The people that hired me, for example, I was like, this is something that I do, and this is an industry that I believe in, and this is a plant that I believe in. And so I think that I did definitely have those who supported me, but then there was those who, they were just, this is a drug and like, it's illegal, like, and you shouldn't be promoting it. And like, I remember working, I won't name one of the places, but I remember saying, guys, because this is when medical had already happened. And I'm like, there's no medical policy in place at the workplace. Like you should have a card for medical employees, because you don't want to violate their rights, because there are discrimination laws and there is case law precedent at this point in New Jersey. And so I said, you guys should draft a policy, for example. And I drafted the policy and it sat there until legalization happened. And then they're like, we'll implement this now. But it just was like, for me, it was like, I couldn't hide behind a veil anymore. And I honestly didn't feel ashamed, because I was already facing that from college. I had friends who they thought it was a drug or it wasn't a good thing. But when I would go out and drink and, go out to clubs, like that was acceptable. And so for me, it was like, how is this behavior acceptable? But when I consume and when I blaze, like I'm totally relaxed. I'm not, I'm not getting aggressive. Like it's a different me. And I think I just, from early on, I just accepted that this is something that I love, whether people accept it or not. It is what it is. And I just have to like own it. And I think that the more you talk about it, people would get sick about it, right? I just always talking about it, trying to educate them. Like, did you know we have an endocannabinoid system? Like this is for a reason. Like, did you know this? And like
the US has a patent.
It's just like,
do you have that number memorized, by the way?
I don't. But consistently trying to feed them with like the facts, and the stats, and things that numbers don't lie. I was like, nobody's died from this single-handedly, right? In isolation. Like that's huge. You know how many people die every year from alcohol, from tobacco, from opioids? It's an epidemic, right? And so I think that I've just been consistently open about it and sharing my experiences with it, regardless of how other people have perceived it. I think the hardest thing for me was my family. That was my big, like professionally, it's, I was like, okay, but I needed my family to support me. And that took a couple of years because like I mentioned, my aunt's experience obviously opened up to that side of it. But then they were like, it's just medicine. It's not something that you can consume, right? It wasn't like, as an Indian girl, you can't smoke something. So that conversation took a while. I actually only told my dad my parents a year and a half ago recently. So it's not even, they were already seeing me doing cannabis law. They were seeing all these articles, but they didn't know until I told them one day, I was like, I don't want to lie to you anymore. I was like, this is something I've been doing for over a decade. And then I showed them the difference. I was like, I'm going to go blaze outside. I'm going to come back in and show you the difference if you saw any. And my dad was like waiting. He's like, he thought I was going to get crazy. And he's like, you're not. I was like, I went in, I got water and like food. And he was like, you're hungry and like, you want water? I'm like, yeah, like sounds like a drug, right? Like what drug makes you want water and food? It's like medicine. So I think like for them, it was just like, like a sculpture, like chiseling away. Consistently like, okay, showing them the facts, sending them articles. And I've done that with everybody that I love. It's like, just read. And then if you don't want to be associated, or you don't want to support it, that's fine. I just don't want to hear the negatives anymore.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I love that. That's kind of a similar approach that I have. I keep saying I'm out of the green closet, but then these things come up where I'm like, I guess I'm not really out of the green closet. For example, 4th of July weekend, my brother and his family, they were visiting, and my nieces, they're like 3 and 5 or 3 and 6. And like, I have 4 daughters that are 2, 3, 12, and 18. So I have a very big range of ages where I handle it differently with each range. Like the 18-year-old, obviously she's lived a different type of life where it's been illegal, but now it's legal. It's like, you have to approach it differently with her. And now she's like getting close to the age where, she could legally go buy it herself. So here are the things, like, let's educate her. And similar with my 12-year-old, it's more like breaking it down to the basics of, this is what it is. It's a plant. And, this is what it means, when you use any kind of plant, for aromatherapy or essential oils or whatever, there's different things that do different things for your body. So, and then teaching her about the social stigma and stuff like that. So there's like different things I have to address with the 2 and 3-year-old. Honestly, I feel like we're their age range. I don't have to do as much as I have had to do with the 12 and 18-year-old. And I'm trying to make it more normalized where they see me smoking outside. I don't hide it from them. I do feel uncomfortable with my 12-year-old seeing me sometimes. So I do kind of hide it from her. But like with the 2 and 3-year-old, I don't really hide it. Do I go up and smoke in their face? No, absolutely not. Do I smoke in my house? No. Like, there's different things that I do that I feel like are appropriate and what are not appropriate. So, but with that, as my brother's visiting, my nieces, they come out and I forgot, like, I don't know what my brother's, what his perspective or what he wants to teach his children. So, and I don't feel like it's my place to just be like, hey, let me tell you this, So out of respect, I did put it away when his kids came around, just because I felt like that's not my place, to tell them anything. So that was a situation where I felt like, okay, I guess I am kind of still in the closet, but then I don't know. It's just like slowly taking baby steps, I guess, and trying to just talk about these things more so that others, when they face the same situation, they know how to handle it. Another thing that I started doing, I went to a mom group that was not cannabis related, but just a new mom group. And I started telling them about, what I do. And instead of saying like, oh, do you like weed or do you smoke? I just said, are you cannabis friendly?
Yeah.
So that way they don't have to admit whether they consume or not, but it gauges like where they are in their standpoint. So
yeah, I had something interesting that I never thought would happen. And if they watch this, they'll hear about it, because this is like, if I can think of all my experiences, which one was one that was the reaction that was the worst for me personally was that when I had told my dad, a year and a half ago that this is something that I do, one evening, both my brothers, my cousins, there's like family around, at the end of the evening, we're going to consume. And so my dad's sitting there, and two of my cousins, they left, and the next day they were like, we cannot believe that you did that in front of your dad. Like, you disrespected him. You might as well have had sex in front of him. Like, that's the same equivalent. And I was like, that's the equivalent of me choking up in front of my dad. Like, I think my dad would so much rather see this. And I asked my dad, I was like, Dad, were you upset? Did you feel disrespected? I was like, no. And he didn't even care, because he's like, you're an adult. I'd rather know. Like, what am I even going to say? It's not like he's like, you're not asking me for permission. You're telling me that this is what you do. And so, but my cousins, they're in their early 40s, and they have young, one of them has young kids. And so it was so shocking to me that I thought they were more in line with the way I was thinking about this. Yeah. But they were on this extreme where it was just like this thing, like, you don't do it. in our culture, and you don't do it in front of your elders, and it's a sign of disrespect. And for me, I was like, I think it's respectful that I don't lie to my parents.
Yeah. No, see, and I'm glad you mentioned that. My mother is Korean, so I'm like a first generation. My father is not, he's from here. So it's a little different. I have like a weird upbringing because I still have that culture where in Korea, similarly to what you said, women, if you smoke out in public, like a cigarette, people would talk shit to you pretty much and make comments and be like, look down on you and maybe even throw a rock. I don't know. Like, it's crazy over there. So, I mean, I just think it's wild that, it's not wild, but it's real that, our generational traditions and things like that from prior generations, they do trickle down. And that's why, like my father, I asked him if he could watch my kids while I went to go to like a cannabis event. And he said he was he said he would watch my kids, but he was uncomfortable because it had to do with weed. And I was like, are you serious? I'm wearing a blazer right now. Like there are lawyers and like consultants there at this event. I'm like, this is bizarre. And so I don't think I've smoked in front of them yet, my parents, but I mean, they know that I do. And it's just a matter of like, I think for me, because I was ingrained with like this respect thing, like you don't smoke in front of your parents. It's like still like kind of lingering in me. And I don't know, I'm trying to like be aware of them, acknowledge them, figure out how to handle them and move forward and help others do the same. Because I think that, getting people to really feel comfortable saying, yes, I'm a cannabis consumer is a huge step for our industry as a whole, for the next generation to be like, what's the big deal? And whoever wants to explore it more can, because there's so much to this plant that the general population doesn't know about. And I mean, I'm just excited that, there's people like you that are here to help educate and empower others. So I want to thank you so much for, everything that you do.
That's the goal, right? We all want to like help each other and like make it stigma free. And I don't want to be ashamed for what I do. I shouldn't feel ashamed, right? It's not like I'm not harming anybody. I'm not harming myself. It's something that gives me huge benefits. I mean, it helps control my flare-ups. I have an autoimmune disorder. It helps me tremendously. And so it's like, I benefit from it in so many different ways where I shouldn't feel ashamed to consume in front of my family. And so my mom hasn't seen it, for example, yet. It's like baby steps, like you said. So my dad's like, okay, on board. Whereas my mom was like, is this something you do every day? I'm like, yes. Like I told you I do this every day.
I just did.
And I was like, 99% of the time I've come home, like I've been high, and like you've noticed nothing. You've never noticed it because it's not and that's the thing, right? That's the big, it's like not that noticeable, right? Especially when you're medicating yourself and you're using it like throughout the day and you've been a daily user. Yeah. You won't be able to recognize it the same as I had it been the first time, right? The first time, like you would know right away. Like I didn't even know what it was. And so, and I was, the first experience scared even me because I did it. It's just your body reacts differently, right? And something that you're ingesting and stuff. And so I think that it just takes time and having more conversations and just being more open about it until it gets to a point where you don't have to feel like you're hiding, you're
100%. My neighbor, the family next door, they moved in like 6 years ago, maybe. And I just like have never felt comfortable. I would hide from my neighbors whenever I would see them outside. Cause I'm like, I don't feel like I can be myself because this is a big part of my life. And like, I just don't even want to have that conversation. Like, I just want to avoid it because also what if they look down on me and we live right next door and our children go to school together and like, what are they going to like make their kids not hang out with my kids and, all this stuff. Then I'm like, hanging out with one of my other neighbors who I knew was cannabis friendly. And she was like, oh, why don't you just talk to, so-and-so next door. She is a consumer, or she has her medical card. And I was like, Are you serious? This whole time. So like now we, hang out and
It's great.
we have a friendship now. Like it's the original peace pipe. That's all I'm saying.
It is. It really is. It's like a peace plant, right? That's all it is.
Yep, exactly. So right now you're working on taking on more licenses in New Jersey and overseas?
So New Jersey is definitely like the busiest right now with, regulations and applications being accepted. So that's been the bulk of like my day to day, I would say, for the most part, and just ethically guiding people through, not ripping people off and being, predatory, because it happens so much in this space, especially with attorneys and consultants. For whatever reason, they think they can just charge people like these astronomical rates to secure a license, and it's just insane. So for me, it's really like intentional about building a practice where I'm doing quality work. I'm helping people hopefully get, businesses up and running. That's the goal for me. Like I want to be able to see somebody in business where I can walk into your store and purchase from you, and like local equity folks, people who've been really impacted, women, cultivators, I want to be able to add to the supply chain and make it diverse and equitable the way it deserves to be. And so that's definitely a big part of it. And then overseas, back in India, so my family come from a family of farming, agricultural background. My great-grandfather, great-great-great, like grandpa, they were farmers essentially. And so, but it was, the crop was tobacco. So my family back in India, right now, my uncle manages acres of tobacco plantation. And so it's been an issue in India because of the cancer rates are going up, tobacco related diseases are going up. And so the government actually has issued like letters, and they're basically saying that if you can stop growing this crop in favor of another crop, like we'll provide you with subsidies and things of that nature. And so I've been wanting to go back to the motherland and convert our tobacco farms to hemp, because I want to start getting into hempcrete, showing sustainable housing models and building out the pilot program. So I've been networking, connected with a lot of amazing people in India, who fortunate to be friends with, like Abhishek Mohan of Hemp Street, and just learning. And so December, at the end of this year, actually, I'm going to be going to India for a couple of weeks to see what I can do. I have a lot of contacts now, and I'm hoping that I can, really change my family's trajectory for the best.
Yeah.
That's a dream of mine.
That's amazing. Not only, you can help build and sustain and scale your family's generational wealth, but also save the world, the environment with hemp. People just still don't know how beneficial it is just for our environment, and how many things hemp can replace, like plastic, or even, like you said, hempcrete. You can make concrete out of hemp. Clothes, like
parts, biofuel,
so many things. And I even, when I first started exploring the cannabis industry, I was like, oh, I would love to have like, an all hemp clothing line or something, but we can't even get hemp we can't even source it, because prohibition wiped out everything and really ruined Earth.
Yeah. And the supply chain in America, right? It's just like, we don't have it. We don't have that infrastructure built out yet, where it's like, okay, we're producing hemp for fiber and for textiles. And then, and then what? Where are we going? Like, where are we manufacturing this, and where are we selling it? And it's like, it's small scale. There's so much more concentration on like the CBD side of it, and on cannabinoids, which is great because research is totally needed in that. But I want to, like, when I go back to India and when the plane flies over Dharavi, which is like the slums in Bombay, it breaks my heart, because nobody should be living like that. And when you see a Mother Nature's fiber that can be turned into hempcrete, stronger than concrete, fire resistant, eco-friendly, right? And the plant's carbon sequestering, like most plants, cleaning up our air. It's like, why aren't we doing this? And why can't we show the government, hey, here's a proof, here's a model that's actually sustainable, it's going to be affordable, and it's going to be respectable. And you can house people in this, and like, let's clean up our country, let's clean up our environment, the air, and just start the trend. And back soil, you can make good soil, right? There's nutrients you can add, you can create the soil. And so geology aside, I think that this will potentially happen in India. And the goal is that we can start to, create the model that can happen in other countries, like in Latin America, for example, or in Africa, other countries that have 16 plus hours of daylight. They need economic boom, and it's going to happen. And so if I can be a part of it, I'm going to hope to make it happen.
I'm manifesting it. I'm putting it out in the air, all the energy. I don't know if it were like, I actually am starting to believe that my manifestations are working. So
they do.
They do, right? It's weird. And like even more than what you can think of sometimes. Like the fact that at that expo, I interviewed Redman. Like I didn't even think I would be able to get a picture with him, but I actually got an interview with him. And
yes, when I was with my friend Harris, who's above now, when he introduced me to cookies first. He brought Girl Scout cookies. It was on the market. And he was like, you got to try this. This is like the best stuff. And I was like, oh my God, this is fire. And we loved it. And this is like, years ago when they first came out with that strain, and it was amazing. And I was like, I want to like, I need to meet Berner. I need to be a part of cookies. Like, I want to figure this out. Like, I just loved everything about the branding, like the genetics, things evolved, and I will definitely meet Berner. But now to be on Cookie Social Impact as like a recognized partner, that to me is progression. That is manifestation. It's like, I never thought I would get to this point. I would dreaming about it, but to see it and to build it and like to see hopefully like the fruition, it really is powerful, right? It's like all of our beliefs, everything that we imagine is creative energy. It's connecting to source energy, and it works. I mean, from the littlest things, like I'll manifest parking spots now. I'm going to find a parking spot in New York, like parallel park. Like I'm going to find it and I'll find parking spots now. It's amazing.
I love that. See, it's all about like mindset. I feel like when you have the right mindset, you know what your mission is, who you are, like what you're meant to do, and you have something greater than just yourself, like changing the world. That's when things really start to happen. And I just want to say congratulations on all your success so far. I see so much more for you in the future. I can't wait to see it all. And I just want to thank you so much for being here. I will make sure to include all the links to Blaze Law Firm and Blaze Responsibly in the show notes, as well as your LinkedIn. And again, just thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jenny.